What's up, babe? Tony here, and I'm going to give you a blending 101 tutorial today. If you want to see how I blend out my single layer makeup look, then keep on watching. Now we have all of our products on our face for our single layer application. Where the heck do we start with blending? So remember when I told y'all makeup is art and everybody has their own approach. This is what I mean when I say you have your own approach, because when it comes to blending out, especially a single layer face, you can do that in whatever order. Now, I do suggest if you have all cream products, it's okay to blend out in however order you feel like it. But if you have powdered products, so let's say I had a powdered bronzer instead of a cream bronzer, I would probably most likely blend out all of the cream products on my face first and then do the powdered product. For this particular face, I'm going to start with blending out my concealer. So the concealer that is under my eye is the very first area that I'm going to blend out. You always want to keep a dedicated sponge or brush, especially for your concealer, because your concealer is a lighter color, okay? So for me, I am using my Beauty Blender, and I'm using this to blend out all of my concealer areas. So any areas that are lighter, this is what I am using. And as you can see, as I am blending out under my eye, I'm patting and tapping continuously. I'm not swiping, I'm not moving and shifting. No, because that product, we want it to stay in that concentrated area that we put it on. So we have to make sure that we're kind of tapping that in place and not moving that product out of that space, okay? So again, just making sure that you are tapping consistently until you get the blend that you want. And when you know that your blend is kind of coming to, as you can see on this side of my face, is blending outward into that bronzer and that blush. You really can't tell where that concealer stops and where it starts. Unlike this side, you can see my concealer is stopping right there at the top, and then you see all these different colors. So in order, or the main goal that you want to accomplish in blending out your makeup is to make sure that every single color is blended out. You have a very nice seamless blend into all of your different color transitions, and that you do not have any lines of demarcation, which simply means that you do not have any harsh stopping lines on your product. So one thing that you can do when you're blending out that concealer, you do have a little excess product that will get on your sponge. I did not put anything on the top of my eyelid, so I am just simply going to take some of that color and put it right there on the top of my eyelid. I'm not doing anything to my eyelid except throwing a little bit of bronzer on when I get done blending out all of my cream products, and I will show you what that looks like. But for now, just kind of take that product and also blend some of that at the top of your eye. This is a very soft weight look, so I did not purposely put any concealer on the top of my eye. I just want a very nice, simple, and natural looking single layer makeup application. The next product that I'm going to blend out is going to be my bronzer. The reason I'm going to do my bronzer next is because I want to see where my sculpt is around my cheeks and make sure that I'm not dragging that too far down or pushing it too far up. Because if I were to blend, well, personally, I feel like if I were to blend out my foundation first, I might bring that foundation up too high and then I lose my bronzer, or I might do it too low and then I might end up having bronzer too far down, which again is going to elongate my face down, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to take my bronzer. When I'm blending out my bronzer, I'm going to use an angled brush. This is a very dim, well, I'd say not as dense, but it has a little fluff to it and it's angled. The reason you want to do an angled brush, especially on your cheeks, is because we want to make sure that that is angled a certain way so that you can get that product to kind of move in a certain direction. So when I'm blending out my bronzer, I'm going to make strokes upward. I do not want to bring that product down any further than where I put it at. And again, I want to blend it out in that section. So I'm going to take it, make sure my angle is pressed on my cheek, and again, just moving that upward. And the same thing applies with the bronzer. When you are blending that out, you do not want to like take that brush and like go straight across your face or nothing like that. You want to make light strokes, because when you're doing light strokes, it's going to help move that product in that particular area and it's going to stay there. So again, making sure that I am kind of blending it up. And you can kind of go downward a little bit, kind of go up, down, up, down. That way you really blend out that concealer into that bronzer area. If you do lose your blush in the process, it's perfectly okay. Again, single layer face, the goal is to only put one layer of makeup. But if you do need to touch up a little bit of blush, or if you need to touch up a little bit of your bronzer, that's perfectly fine. Do it to whatever your liking is. It's not a perfect way to do any of this stuff. You just gotta figure it out as you go along and figure out what method really works for you, okay? So as you can see, I'm actually taking just a tad more bronzer because I actually lost a little bit on this side. I'm just gonna do the same method of blending that out onto my face. Now, before I blend out the rest of my bronzer on my forehead perimeter area, I'm gonna go ahead and blend out the foundation that's on my face. So whatever your approach is, whatever your method of madness is your choice. You can use a damp sponge, you can use a wet sponge, or you can simply use a blending brush. It really comes down to your texture of skin. It comes down to personal preference. So let's say if you do decide to use a wet sponge, but on your skin type, the wetness from the sponge is pulling the product off of your face instead of moving it in place, then just use a regular dry sponge. If you feel like the sponge, you're not getting the coverage or you're not getting all of the areas that you need to in order to blend out your makeup, then go ahead and use a brush. It really, again, comes down to whatever works for you and however your skin type is. So for me today, I am using a wet sponge to blend out my foundation. I feel like for me and my skin type, it works good for me to move the product around my face. So I'm going to kind of work this foundation again into my jawline, because if you remember, I've put some bronzer down at the bottom to help blend all of that out at the end. But for now, I'm going to focus on putting all of my foundation right in this area. I'm going to blend that out by tapping. Once again, not moving the product with the sponge, not forcefully doing it. You want to make small taps, and you can do them quick, but you want to make taps to really blend out that product in that particular area of your face. And don't forget, you did put a little foundation on your nose, so don't forget to blend that out as well. And you can kind of go side to side with that as well, just to, again, make sure that you don't have any lines of demarcation. We want all of that to blend, so you can blend that into that top area of concealer that's right under your under eye. Blend that down just a little bit on the sides, just so you can have a nice seamless blend. Now, when I get to my forehead, I'm going to kind of make angled taps, okay? So I'm going to kind of start one way, then I'm going to point that up towards the middle, then I'm going to point it the other way. That way I don't lose that circular spot in the middle of my forehead. That's going to give me kind of like that highlighted area. So I just want to make sure that I'm kind of tapping in different directions to really make sure that I'm keeping that product in that spot. The reason I saved doing my bronzer on my forehead is because now I can go back with my bronzing brush. And again, we want to make slight strokes to transition the bronzer and the foundation. So again, we want that to be a seamlessly blended look. We don't want to tell where one color stops and one starts. Even though they're different shades, you still should be able to have a very seamless look. So again, taking and making light strokes with that bronzing brush until I get the blend that I want. I should have no lines of demarcation, and again, kind of taking it in different angles around that forehead area. When it comes to bronzer, you do want to move some of that bronzer into your hairline just to give the depth that you need to go from the darkest color into the lighter colors, which are more concentrated in the middle of the face. So make sure that you're also kind of moving that bronzer back. Okay, so now we're checking the forehead. As you can see, you don't tell where the colors stop or start. They are completely transitioned into one another. They are completely smooth, they're seamless, and you cannot tell at all where the colors stop, but you can tell that I have a lighter area in the middle and I have a little bit of depth going around it. That is what you want when you blend out your face. So I'm going to continue to blend out that bronzer around the hairline on this side before we get into blending out the blush. With the blush, same thing that you do on the bronzer when you blend that out. With the blush, and I really honestly do not have the best brush right now. It's a little dirty and stiff, but we're gonna make it work today. So you want to take that blush, and first of all, I'm gonna put just whatever excess product I have from my brush. But when it comes to your blush, you can do light swiping motions. And typically what I do is I like to bring my blush from that top area right above the bronzer, and I like to bring that up into my temple. So I'm gonna make small swiping motions until I get that product blended upward to my temple area. See, I've got my line of bronzer, I've got my cream blush. I'm gonna take my bronzer because you can see a little light shade right there around my hairline. So we wanna take that bronzer again and work that back into the hairline. We don't wanna see any lines where that foundation stopped, because that's where it came from, was my foundation and my sponge. So again, just making sure you're taking that bronzer and working that backwards. So now you can see I do not have that highlight anymore, and that's exactly what we want. We want that to be seamlessly blended. So that comes from blending out that bronzer and making sure you have enough depth around the perimeter of your face, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and finish blending out the blush on this side of my face. And again, working that up into my temple, doing small swiping motions. Now, don't forget, we put that bronzer at the bottom of the chin. So again, now we wanna move that bronzer up. So we wanna kind of take it right there at the base of your neck, work that product upward, again, in small swiping areas. So taking it up, kind of blending it up. Then you can kind of take it downward and kind of blend it downward. The whole key is to make sure that you have that nice blended area going from your chin into your neck. I am going to put just a pinch more concealer in the corner of my eye. And the only reason I'm doing this is because I want to make sure that I have all of my lines and creases under my eye set before I actually put my powder and set them in place. So if you crease a lot, doing this single layer makeup face is actually very helpful. It helps from giving extra creasing under the eye, just because you don't have as much product under your eye. You don't have the foundation and then the layer of concealer and then more concealer and then more concealer. You know, you have a little bit of product at a time. So what I like to do on my single layer is go ahead and blend down my concealer, but then I do like to take just a pinch more. And then what I do is I have my powder ready, which I'm using my Mercier Honey Translucent. And I have my sponge ready, because yes, you do need a sponge, another sponge, in order to set your face. So I'm gonna go ahead, have that ready on deck when I blend this out. Again, I'm making sure that I have all of my lines really covered. I'm making sure everything is nice and covered with that concealer. Now, immediately take that powder. Do not take a lot of powder. Dust it off on the edge. Go ahead and stamp that on the back of your hand as well to get as much of that excess product off, and then stamp that powder. The reason you want to do this is because if you put too much powder, oh, there's a fly. If you put too much powder, it's going to automatically crease. It's going to make your under eye get very dry, especially if you have not properly hydrated your under eye. It's gonna make your eye get very dry, and it's going to make all of that product shrivel up. That is not what you want. So put that powder on a little bit at a time. You do not need a lot. You just want to have enough to make sure that you have set that under eye so that you don't have any of the creasing, okay? So that's all I really need for today, because I'm not doing, like I said, a full face. I'm just doing something very natural and lightweight. And as you can see, all of my creasing under my eye is gone, and that's what we want. I'm going to take a skin tone powder, and this is my Hazelnut by Fenty. I'm going to take some of this loose powder. This is more of a skin tone powder versus my Honey Translucent powder is a light powder, and that's because you don't want to set under your eye with skin tone powder. It's going to make that area darker, and obviously we want to give a little highlight to that area, so you want to make sure that you are setting with a lighter color. Now to tie the rest of my face together, I am going to use a skin tone powder. So I'm just going to dip into that just a little bit, dust off as much of that excess as possible. And I'm going to focus that really in the areas where I have my foundation. Some people, like, say if I were doing more of like a glam look, I would definitely probably take this powder and kind of chisel out a little bit around that bronzer area. But I'm going for a more seamlessly blended look today because this is a lightweight face. So I'm gonna really just kind of take that right in this area. I'm not gonna worry about chiseling out my cheeks any further. I'm just gonna go ahead, make circular motions, and that's what's gonna tie the whole entire look together. Make sure that you're kind of working that around that perimeter area to get all of the loose ends tied up. So that's why you want to have a fluffier brush for the end to go ahead and make sure everything is blended together. So I want to take this right in this area where I kind of have my where I have my blush and bronzer stopping. I'm going to kind of work that area too, just so I don't have like such a hard stopping point. I want that to blend as well. Work that around the mouth, around the chin, and then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Dust off as much as you can. Again, we don't need a lot. Work it right in this area. I've got my Fenty, what's this? Stalk'r bronzer, and this is a powdered form, so it's packed in there. Unlike the unlike the cream version. So first, I'm just gonna take this bronzer and kind of work that all over the top of my eyelid. Again, I'm using this because I don't want my face to look washed out. I want to put just a little bit of color over that concealer that I lightly tapped onto the top of my lid. And same thing with the eyes. You want to blend out in circular motion so that you don't have any lines of demarcation or any hard stopping points. That's the goal. So to tie this look together, all we need now is a lip and a highlight. I hope you all enjoyed the Blending 101 video. I feel like it made more sense to do it with a single layer makeup look versus doing you know, a super complex look or like a full face look, because I wanted to keep it as beginner friendly as possible. If you really enjoyed this video, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below, and also make sure that you are hitting that notification bell as well. Like it, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to share it as well. Maybe somebody else needs help with blending out their face too, so yeah, don't forget to do that. But I will go ahead and catch y'all on the next video. Have a good night, good morning, good evening to wherever you are. I'll see y'all on the next time. Bye.